Preparing to live stream the meeting. Put your smile on. Setting it up. Okay. Live. Yes, we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Miss Judy Cares Live. Oh, it says my internet connection is unstable. Ah!
Oh,
well,
boy.
Jesus, take the wheel.
It's
Oh,
always something.
always something. Hey, how you doing tonight? We haven't even had a chance to catch up. I saw you. The jail was great yesterday.
I don't know. I announce on Facebook before I go in every time and to get prayer, and I just am sensing just the most amazing I don't know, sense of
support.
Support. God right there with us. It's different, and it's a very good different.
Well, that's great. I'm glad you shared that. So everybody out there in Facebook land that's praying, take note that it's making a big difference in how your experience is.
And realize this, you're going in there with me as a prayer partner. You're part of my going in there. You're going in there with me. And it's I don't know, I feel a lot of peace and a lot of, I can't even think of the word I want to say, a lot of encouragement as I go in.
Maybe not quite as alone, knowing that you've got prayer people out there praying.
Right. Yeah.
That's great.
Well, it's very good.
Isn't it? It's because like you said, everybody that's praying is actually going in with you. It's like, this is
really
the beautiful
part of my ministry.
Right.
I'm not doing this by myself. First of all, only the Holy Spirit can do what he does in the cell blocks, but just going in there, everyone who prays for me is going with me. They are a significant part of this ministry.
Yeah. And so every woman's life that changes as a result of your ministry, they get rewards for as well.
Absolutely true.
So that's great. Yeah. You're one of those people. We thank you. We appreciate you. Please keep it up. Don't stop now, because so many lives are at stake.
That's true.
So many lives are at stake, right? They're making life or death decisions when they make those choices when they leave about whether they're going to rehab or going back into their old patterns. And it is really tough to beat an addiction.
I know there are people that go to non-faith-based rehabs that do have victory, but there's a different kind of victory for someone who's in a faith-based rehab or recovery group, because they are challenged to let Jesus be in their lives. And I got proof on Facebook. God's just changing people's lives like crazy, just like crazy.
That's great.
Let me see if I can find. Keep on asking, and let me see if I can find.
Well, that's what it's all about, if the good news, for it to be good news, it has to be transformative, right?
Absolutely. And I get to see it like on steroids, transformation on steroids. I see people come in there, wow, oh, please help me, my heart. And then when they connect and understand some of, we're all subject here, so I'm sorry, but some of the biggest things people deal with is shame and guilt and rejection and just feeling horribly about themselves. And then when they see that Jesus has been pursuing them all this time, come on, girl, let's get this together. So let me read what one of my special little spiritual children posted today. I can't give her name because I didn't ask for permission, but she posted this. You have a big heart for a reason, my darling. You stand out from the rest of them because you can endure far more than what you think you can. You are so strong and so brave, even when your heart has been ripped apart and is beyond recognition, even when you have been left alone by the ones you needed most, you still got up and faced another day. You are the bravest of them all, a survivor who makes sure she's a thriver. This one of the first young women that I met in jail ministry.
Wow.
A heroin addict.
Mm.
Her life is turned around.
Mm.
When I read that, man, my heart goes boom, boom, boom. All right. All right.
That is beautiful. I love it. Yeah, that charges you up for a whole nother decade.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's true. Wouldn't even have to wheel me in.
Right.
I used to tell them, if they have to bring me in on a stretcher, if I can come, I'll keep coming,
So this kind of makes me, I know we're going to be talking about books in a minute, but let's talk about this for a minute. Addiction and recovery, it looks different for people because you hear these stories where somebody gets saved and they've never picked a drink up afterwards, or they never took another pill. They never,
very unusual.
Very unusual.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, I might be wrong, that people expect Jesus to make that kind of immediate difference in an addicted person's life.
And that's probably our fault, Jesus followers' fault, for not explaining to them that he doesn't wave a magic wand and all of a sudden everything's normal again.
Right. Yeah. So do you have an explanation of why it's not like that?
Why it's not really quick.
Right.
Addiction is tough. It's glued to your soul. It's chemically, it's chemical dependency. It's very hard to break out of, extremely hard to break out of.
Yeah. So the body is actually craving. The body, and it's like that craving doesn't go away overnight.
Right.
And it's like, go ahead.
They'll tell you that it's a day-by-day fight. It's a day-by-day fight.
Yeah. And this really just kind of carries over to all kinds, not just drug addiction, alcohol addiction, but anyway, just to the smaller things in our lives that we're trying to find healing in, trying to find growth in. It's like we want, I've had clients who say, I'm just praying that God will take my desire away. I'm like, no, that just doesn't work. Especially when it comes to like overeating and stuff. I'm like, no, that's not going to work. It's like, we're made to crave food, so that's how we're wired. Our body is actually wired to crave things, and we train it. What to crave.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a whole lot. I mean, I haven't studied it or whatever, but I always just like, man, these stories where people like, man, they never picked up another drink again. I'm like, why does that work for some people and not for others?
I have no idea. I don't understand that, but I can tell you, Sonny's father was a raving alcoholic, and in his probably 18 to 20-ish somewhere, Sonny was a drinker, and he was the kind that would black out. And so he would drink and black out. They would find him in his car on the side of the road and stuff like that. And his mother really wanted everybody to pray for Sonny. I'm sure she didn't want her son to turn out like her husband, but one of his sisters, it was actually Betty, Calvin's mom, got him. I think that's who got him to go to church. And no, they took him to a Billy Graham crusade, and he trusted Christ, and he never drank again. So he's one of the, and if I were to go upstairs and ask him now, I don't think he could tell me how that happened, but it happened with him.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it's good work that you do. Proud of you, and everybody that's out there praying for Judy. Keep it up. It's good stuff. And you're sharing in this recovery ministry that she has.
You walk in there with me figuratively. You do. You are a part of that ministry, a very strong part of that ministry.
Love it. Love it.
That's the way it are.
That's the way it are. Yeah. So last week we started talking about books that have influenced you and have had significant impact on you in your spiritual formation, in your journey of getting to know Christ and following him. So the first few books that we talked about didn't record. So, where do you want to start tonight? You want to go backwards, or do you have, what else? What do you have?
I can quickly show some of those we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Last week, first of all, I had my jail, the Bible I take to jail. And so I said, the most significant book in my life has been the Bible. And I showed my grandmother Harris, but real quickly, I've got to give my mama, my Granny Boyd, some.
Let's talk about that. Okay.
There's my Granny Boyd. We saw this all the time. And see, she's sitting and she's got a book in her hand. You see that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She reads the Bible. Every day we would see her either in her bedroom in a rocker or in that living room. Every day, that's what we saw. And she lived it, and she taught us principles, but not just by the way she lived. So I credit my spiritual excitement, my spiritual experience to my grandmother. And at my mother's funeral, my cousin Gene spoke. He's a pastor, and he spoke, and he said, and my cousin Billy was there.
Billy.
He said, Billy, I believe Granny prayed all of us grandkids into heaven. I totally believe that. She had such a real, vibrant, just real experience with Jesus. And so I credit her with that part of my development. My grandmother Harris had an influence in my character building and everything. So I had to give Granny a shout out.
Show Grandmother Harris again and tell us a little bit about her. Wait, what are you?
That's my grandmother Harris.
Okay.
We called her Mama Harris.
Mama Harris.
She, of course, was my mom's mom. And she was an inspiration to me because when she was in her 40s, in the middle of the night, she was stricken with rheumatoid arthritis. And that was like in the 40s. So there wasn't a lot of medications they could take and whatever. And so she was rushed to the hospital, and her family doctor stood over her bed in the hospital and said, Miss Harris, I just have to tell you, you'll never walk again. And she she looked up at him. I get this from her. She looked up at him and said, "You watch me."
Mm.
And mother said she started by crawling from the bedroom to the bathroom.
Mm.
And when I met her at, a kid, she was walking. Now, many of her joints were frozen, her knees, her hips. So she walked kind of like this, but she still wrote notes to people. She was gritty, man. She was gritty. She was a tough old cookie.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're a clone.
I get that from, I think I look a lot like Mama Harris.
Yeah. Well, you definitely have that spirit.
Right. Listen, grandmothers are very important. Grandmothers are very important if you're a grandmother. Man, my grandmothers had such influence on me. Be a good influence on your grandchildren, but grandparents are just super important. Man, unbelievable.
Right.
Never
Right.
met my father's father. He died the same year I was born. But my Papa Harris was my buddy. He was a good man. He supported me on everything I did. He was a great man.
That's great. Yeah, I didn't have that privilege of really knowing my grandparents. They were dead on my dad's side. And then my mother's side, I just didn't see them much. So I always wondered what it would be like to have that kind of.
Was great. It
Yeah.
was. We moved to High Point, North Carolina we moved to New Orleans when I was about 3 or 4. Then moved to High Point, North Carolina, and then my dad had his first heart attack. So they gave him a choice of where to go. And so we came back home to Birmingham because that's where we originated. And he built our house 3 blocks from Granny because Granny and Daddy's sister, Aunt Mimi, lived together because Aunt Mimi's husband had died of pneumonia at 39, and she had 2 boys. So they lived together. So every afternoon, man, I was going to Green's.
Oh, that's so
great.
sweet. Yeah, that still just the little girl in me would long for that for sure.
You would love my Green's.
I probably would.
Yeah.
So I lived next door to my grands for quite a few years, and that was great. Had a lot of
Right.
had a lot of influence with them, which was great. And then Sharon and I, we had cousin camp every summer for the grands, her grands, my grands.
Yes.
And we would teach them Bible stories and do fun things. And that was a great time. And you just have to hope the seed planted is taking fruit somewhere, because I'm not quite seeing the fruit I'd like to see.
Yeah.
But hoping. And even on Tuesday of this week, I'm supposed to take my 8-year-old grandson on a field trip with his school. So
great.
Fun. But there have some grandchildren that we're kind of estranged from. And I have some grandchildren I'm not even sure have ever been to church much or heard many Bible stories. I mean, totally different from my upbringing. But
right.
I know that and that's not really a terrible thing, because maybe that'll create greater curiosity. Sometimes the familiarity of stuff just, you're so familiar with it, it doesn't even mean much to you. You've heard the story so many times, it's just redundant. But, to hear it new, I love to have somebody who's fresh and has never heard a Bible story. I recently was talking to somebody, they were asking me about, I think it was maybe about my dog's name, Gideon. They're like, they're thinking about some TV show, which I don't know, but I said, no, it's from the Bible. Have you ever heard of the story of Gideon? No. And so it was tell them. Another one was about the widow's oil and flour. Now I'm talking to a seasoned Christian here who had never heard that story.
Oh, wow.
And so it's like, it's so much fun because when they've never heard it, it comes alive to you again.
Yeah. That's true.
Fresh years. It's really fun.
That's true. That's true.
There's that.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, the influence your grandmothers had on you, one was a lot about character and grit, and the other was about Jesus, and you always saw her. interacting with the word. And you've picked up on both of those really well. Yeah. All right. What else?
Okay, we're going to books now.
Yep.
I have to stand up. And
Okay, here she goes. Let's see your shirt. Your children are not for sale.
no, not your.
God's children are not for sale.
That's
Yes.
from the movie
Yeah.
Sound of Freedom. Talk
Yeah.
about human trafficking, which
I can't finish that movie. I've tried watching it. I just can't. It's too dark for me.
oh, it'll kill you.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. So we talked about the Bible as an influence, and then here, let me turn this up like that. And then I talked about the hiding place in the 38 minutes that we talked that didn't get recorded.
I know we talked about Joni's book. Johnny's book.
Corey, but we did talk about Corey ten Boom because I can't find my hiding place book. And we talked about Johnny Erickson Tata. That's her first book. This is a young woman at 16. She jumped into shallow water and broke her neck. Did she break the neck? Because she can't, they had to teach her how to use it. Anyway, she's a quadriplegic.
Yeah.
Then later on, she wrote this book, A Step Further, where she explains her journey. And then this one right here,
A Place of Healing. Wrestling with the mysteries of suffering. Yes. Oh, pain and God's sovereignty. Oh, that's good. Okay, take a seat and just talk about those three for a minute.
we got so many to cover. I can't.
Well, honey, we got all the time in the world. We're not going to do it all tonight. We'll just keep going next time.
Oh, Johnny.
Whoops.
Johnny's not much younger than I am. So I was probably in my early 20s when she was injured and was a quadriplegic. And this is her experience when she was in the hospital and how she struggled with just the fact she was very athletic. You know, she rode horses. They lived out in the country. She had rode horses. She played sports and was a great swimmer. I don't know what happened that day. That's a pier she had jumped off before. I don't know if they hadn't had a lot of rain or what. But she dove into 3 feet of water, broke her neck, and she was drowning in the water. And she and her sister have this little funny joke between them. A crab bit her sister's foot that made her jerk and look, and she saw Johnny in the water and went and pulled her out of the water. She struggled in the hospital as anybody would as a teenager, and she was in there for a long time, had to go to rehab, etc., etc. A step further.
Well, hang on a minute, because on the front of that book, show the front of the Johnny book again.
No, which one?
Yeah,
this one?
That one. Yeah, because she's got a pin in her mouth. Tell us about that.
Yeah, she went to rehab. See, she broke at the neck, I think. And so they literally, physical therapists literally taught her how to move her shoulders so that she could use her hands. Her hands have braces on them. I don't think I have a picture of that, but they have like leather kind of braces on her hands down to here about. And so they did teach her how to paint with putting the brush in her mouth, and they taught her how to paint. And she's got Christmas cards, and she's got great paintings.
Really good.
Yeah, I mean they're not.
It's amazing.
Not sissy. They're good paint. Yeah.
Now, talk about somebody making lemonade out of lemons. Her story is quite inspiring.
She's very honest. She tells you how she struck, how she hoped she would die when she was in the hospital at the beginning. You know, she was on one of those striker boards. If you've ever, I've I had a friend who was in a wreck and was put on one of those things, and they flip them. They're just lying on this board, and
They're strapped in.
yes, I can't imagine.
Oh,
So
no.
she struggled. There was a friend, a boy friend. I don't think a boyfriend, but I'm not sure about that. Steve Estes, I believe is his name, and he would come visit with her and share scripture, and her other friends would come too. But he had a significant influence on her while she was in the hospital. Mm-hmm. So then she got a little older and had a bunch of people gather around her that told her that God wanted to heal her and that he was going to heal her. And so they were going to go to a small church, put hands on her and pray, and she was going to be healed. And they did all the steps and got there and prayed, and she came out in a wheelchair. God did not choose to heal her. Mm-hmm. And so that put her to bed. I mean, she just shut down. Okay, that's it. Forget that. She's probably somewhere in her 20s, maybe even older than 20s to 30s. And she was living, I think, with her sister. She's the baby. Johnny is the baby of the family. Named Johnny because they had all girls and the dad wanted a boy. And Johnny turned out to be a girl. So it's Joni, but they pronounce it Johnny. So her sister finally got tired of it and went in one day and jerked the curtains back and said, you know what? It's time to get up. It's time you got out of this bed and get up. And so she began her recovery at that point. And that's her step further.
Okay, that's the step further book.
It's it's tough.
So what are you gleaning from those two books as you're moving in your own journey with God?
Well, here's the one that really, I can answer your question with this one. A place of healing. So we moved to Montevallo, Alabama in 2016, and I had started the jail ministry. And one day I came home from getting my hair fixed, and I had a heel on my boot. While I was at the salon, I looked down and the rubber part of the heel was coming loose. So while I was sitting there talking to the stylist, I just jerked the rubber part off of that heel. And that was it. Forgot it. Came home. Had to come downstairs with a bunch of things in my hand that had to do with jail ministry, papers and all kinds of stuff, and opened the door, took my first step on the top step, and under the rubber heel was all plastic.
Judy.
Because I'm left-handed, there was only one rail on the steps then. Because I'm left-handed, I reached over and grabbed it that way, which turned me backwards. So I started rolling backwards, and then somehow, and then I got to the next to the last step, hit the next to the last step on my front ways, I think. Anyway, I went up in the air and came back flat down on concrete. And broke in the middle of my back. I have a compression fracture, broken bone in my back. So anyway, I really went downhill with that, because talk about pain. And I don't like to sit. I don't like to be shut down. But there was purpose in it for God to teach me some things. But so then during that time, I read this book. And in Johnny's journey for many, many years, she didn't have any pain because she's a quadriplegic.
Right.
From the neck down. But then somehow nerves started getting irritated, and now she lives in pain a whole lot of the time.
And it just, oh, it's just like, are you kidding me, God?
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
Like, why don't you throw gasoline on the fire?
Well,
It feels so unfair.
gasoline did come on the fire. She got breast cancer. Yes.
That's just wrong.
Yes, got breast cancer. I don't know if she had mastectomies or not, but she did have surgery, chemo, all that kind of stuff came out of it. And a couple of years later, it came back again. She went through all that stuff again. Hey, then COVID hit. She got COVID, got put in the hospital. Now, and this was after I got to see her at Briarwood Presbyterian Church. She came here and spoke. Because she's one of my heroes, so I wanted to hear her. And she had agreed to come out and meet people out front. So I was just okay. And I got in line, and people were kind of pushing around, and the guy said, "Everybody move back. She only has 40% lung capacity." So got COVID and lived through that.
Now, Kate, this would make me wonder, because COVID was horrible when everybody was in the hospital and the ventilators, there was scarcity.
Of course, had to be put in the hospital, yeah.
Of course, but I would imagine that health professionals would look at her and say, let's give it to somebody who's got good.
Oh, exactly.
That's not a quadriplegic.
Yeah, but my friend,
as a quadriplegic, I'd be like, okay, this is a great time to take me out, God.
She says she's looking forward to heaven. When she spoke that night, she said, "I'm going to be up and walking around, and that wheelchair, I'm going to take it up there and throw it down into heaven. That's what I'm going to do."
Yeah, to hell, you mean? Yeah,
to hell.
Have you seen it? There's a statue. It's in bronze or something. I've seen it where a child is coming out of a wheelchair.
That's true. And going up. Yes. Yeah.
I love that. It's so beautiful.
But to hear her speak, she stated, "I would choose this anytime. This is what I needed to bring me to the closest I have with Jesus, and I would not give up going through this." She stated, I heard it with my own ears.
And you met her, right?
So people were taking pictures, they'd come up and they'd take, I thought, give this woman a break, good grief. And so I just went up to her and I took her little hands. They're limp, they got those braces on each finger. And I took her little hands and I said, "You have been my hero since you were injured. I've read your books. I've kept up with you, what you're doing. And I just want you to know how important you are in my spiritual growth. And you will always be one of my heroes," or something. The whole time, I didn't make her say a word. And the whole time, she's just looking at me like, somebody's speaking into me, And that's what I did. And I squeezed her little hands and then I left her.
That's beautiful. So it's so inspirational. I mean, I love the inspirational stories. I don't want to live them at all. I don't want to be one. Let me just talk about it. But
Applause, yes.
Yeah, I don't know that God's he's like, I'm not quite sure about that, Kenzie. But
he's okay.
It's
okay.
That, I mean, she is definitely a testimony of amazing grace that at a level I have not experienced.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true.
But to just have continuous an onslaught of issues cropping up. And that's not all too. She's had relational issues and stuff too, you know. But and then to feel like she's let the church down because she didn't get healed, was it because of her faith? You know,
that's what that was the big thing she made in that
right.
book. People said you didn't have the faith. It's because you didn't have, and in that book she would say, no, it's not. I didn't have the faith. This is where God wants me to be. This is where God wants me to be. This is how he wants to use me. And only in this could I grow as close to Christ as I am. There's no other way. And she will admit, had this not happened, you know, I don't know how good, how influential of a Christian I would have been at all.
Well, she's been extraordinarily influential. And for those of you who don't really know much about her, this is a great woman to explore. She's on YouTube. She's everywhere.
Just podcast. Her podcast. Man, she's
podcast. She does love Jesus, and there's a level of knowing him that's beyond our imagination.
That's what she says. She knows him so much because she says, I have to be totally dependent on him.
Well, see, this story, I'm going to speak for a lot of people right here, scares me to death, because I'm like, if that's what it takes to get close to God, I might just be a little content with my comfortable relationship with him that I have right now.
I just think there's a depth of relationship that probably she can have that we don't have, but we should strive for that.
And that's what I'm scared. I'm scared to ask for.
Don't be a sissy. What's the matter?
I am a sissy. I don't like pain.
Be a sissy.
I don't like pain.
I have to say that when I broke my back, I literally could not do anything. If you know me, I want to be popping and moving and jumping, and it was so difficult for me. But see, then I got this book and read other books, and God just ministered to me during that time. Such a it was a closeness. It was.
Well, we need people who've gone before us in the past that we walk. We need to hear from them. I mean, even recently I asked God, Lord, I need to hear from somebody who's been walking this path and knows what I'm going through right now. And like somebody sent me a link to a podcast, says you need to listen to this. And I mean, it was like, oh my goodness, he answered that prayer. It was that woman was like saying everything that my heart and soul were feeling.
Yeah.
Okay. But to hear from somebody who's walked it and come out on the other side victorious, you know, we need to hear that. And that's the whole point too, is that God intends for us to grow in the context of community, and books can be a form of that, because there's a lot of people who are unchurched or isolated and all of that. And we're talking about books, but books can really be a tool to come alongside you. And I would say books have really raised me in a lot of ways. They've opened up my awareness and spoken to me about God in ways that the church didn't, parents didn't, or, you know, and I've learned so much. So, you know, if you are, I'll just say this to your audience, if you are struggling in any way and somewhat isolated, start reading books, like find books on suffering or find books on the topic that's, you know, and just read, because Christians are writing about their encounters and their experience of God through deep times of suffering. I'm actually reading KJ Ramsey. I actually think you would really like this book. She's written 2 books. One's called This Too Shall Last. And
This Too Shall Last? Oh,
I'm like, I told her in a comment, I said, I hate the title of your book, because I'm like, seriously, who wants to hear that? But she's got crippling autoimmune disease that's just started in her 20s, and she's just been, anyway, that book's great. But she's written another one called The Lord Is My Courage, and it's on Psalm 23. I might have mentioned this last time. I don't remember. Did I?
I don't know if it was last time.
But her experience, like everything that she's saying right now is really ministering to me. And I need somebody who's walked a difficult road, just like you did. Johnny ministered to you. This woman is really ministering to me because she's sharing how she's had to wrestle through all of this, and not just her own body, her issues, but also church harm and a lot of stuff. It's really good. The Lord is my courage, and it's based on Psalm 23, and she has a chapter. Each chapter is like from 2 words of the psalm, and she's just going through it line by line, phrase by phrase. It's beautiful. I'm just amazed at her brilliance, really, in all that she's saying. But it's very helpful, and I think that's the point of what we're talking about here, because we're going to kind of wrap this up, and then go to another book next time. But
let me throw out these 2 real fast.
Okay. Wait, no more books. No.
You just
No.
give you the title.
Okay, give the title. Okay.
Lisa Turquert. I have a hard time pronouncing her name.
First, I think. Okay.
Uninvited. That's where she deals with her husband not being faithful to her, and then dealt with, her life turned upside down. It's not supposed to be this way. And she talks about how her whole life fell apart. So they're going to criticize. She has a women's ministry. I think it's Proverbs 31 ministry. And so she goes through turmoil with, and so people pull away from her.
Can we talk about those books next time, or are you trying
yeah, but I just wanted to give those.
Okay, so there's your preview, everybody. That's what we're gonna look at those next time. Yeah, that's good. So more stories. We're talking about stories tonight, our books, of people who have walked really difficult paths and have stayed faithful to Christ. And they share their journey of how they've done that. And it's not always like, tiptoeing through the tulips. It's like really wrestling with God. Like Johnny, she got upset with God and just gave up after he didn't heal her. And then, all of the ups and downs of faith. Faith looks very messy in dark times.
Absolutely.
And when we are in difficult times, a lot of Christians think, well, we shouldn't be feeling this way or experiencing this, or we can't be mad at God, and all this kind of stuff. These people will share their journey, and you're like, well, that they're putting words to what you're feeling. They're daring to say what you're afraid to say. Absolutely. And it's very, very helpful. So I hope some of you that might be struggling, that you'll pick up some of these books and
Kindle, get them on Kindle, get them on, where you can just listen to them.
Yeah.
Book. See, I like books because here's what I do to books.
Right.
I underline.
Yeah. Right. I do too, but I've gotten to where reading is actually hard for me now. I have so much information coming in, so I do a lot of Audible books.
Right.
And I thought, well, I'm not going to remember, but I'm actually surprised at what I remember.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, so it's good. So we're going to wrap that up for tonight. Great. Like, what's one takeaway from Johnny's life ministry towards you that you're taking away?
That God is totally in control. He is watching our lives. He has a plan for our lives. Even when we go off rail, he still can deal with that and bring us back. He is a pursuing, loving Savior, brother, who wants us to just come and be alongside him. You know what I forgot? I know a book I forgot. What's that book? Gee, the guy wrote it to his children. it's about being in a cabin.
Oh, the shack. Okay. Hold that
That's
thought.
what
Let's definitely talk about the shack next
that's
time.
what he wants. He wants us to have that kind of
Yeah.
friendship with him.
Yeah.
God is in control no matter what. That's what I get from Johnny. And I get from Johnny that he is so worthy of our loving him and serving him out of love for him. He is so worthy.
So after you fell and had your back injured, her book really ministered to you. Talk a little bit about what you were wrestling with that back injury and how you worked through it.
Hey, the pain, I've never experienced pain like that before. It keeps going through my mind. So I'm going to mention my physical therapist at that time. Her name is Carden, and Carden helped me so much, man. That I had, I had a period of time where I was in this thing called a turtle brace. It was horrible. I had to sleep in that thing.
Ooh.
And the pain was just, it's indescribable. The pain was. And so when I finally got to where I could go to physical therapy, I went, and I think this girl's the best physical therapist ever, of course. And she's from Louisiana. So the minute I walked, and this right after I'd moved to Alabama, so we just hit it off. And so she worked with me for several sessions, and she said, "That's it. I've had it. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. You go back to your doctor and tell them they need to do some X-rays, MRIs. Something was wrong." And there was a problem. They had done this stuff called kyphoplasty, where they put cement between the two vertebrae, and it's supposed to separate the vertebrae. And what it did was just set the thing up like this, and it crumbled. And so she said something is not right. And if she hadn't picked that up and was very, solid on this, something is wrong, then that got me, where they really knew what the problem was, not that there's a whole lot they can do with it. So now I'm into pain management, got pain management doctors. But if she had not spoken up and said, "I'm enough of this, something ain't right," I would have suffered a lot longer. But the pain was excruciating, and the inability to do the things I wanted to do. See, I had to stop going into the jail for I don't know how long, because I couldn't stand, I couldn't sit, I couldn't. So but it was sweet time of fellowship with God, because I couldn't do anything else. So I was reading scripture, and I was reading books, and God just ministered to me just amazingly. I think I can say it was worth it because of that time that I had like that. Yeah, I will say that it was worth it.
So you have talked about how Brother Bowden would say, the grace is there for the time.
That's exactly right.
You experienced that.
Exactly right. I'll tell you how he explained that real quickly. There was a guy named John Hess way back in church history. He was going to be burned at the stake. And the night before he knew he was going to be burned at the stake, he had a candle on a table, and he put his hand in the flame and jerked back. And
oh gosh,
he go, "Oh man." But when they took him out and they put him on a cross and then put him on fire, and they said until he died, he just sang hymns. That's the grace that he couldn't have when he stuck his hand into the candle, because he wasn't going through that that situation of being burned at the stake. But when he was there, he was looking up to heaven, singing.
It's like Stephen when he was stoned, right?
Right. Grace. God will give you the grace for whatever the situation is at that time. You won't have it now, and you'll think, oh, there ain't no way. He gives the grace at the time we need it. He says, my grace is sufficient.
So that's really good words to end on. Why? No, don't scan my computer right now. I'm getting a pop-up. I don't want it to slow it down. That's a really good exit line, is to just to know that, like I was saying earlier, if I had to go through what Johnny had to go through in order to get close to God, is like, I might just be a little content with where I am. Like, have fear, and I was kind of raised in that too. Like, if you were going to really surrender your life to God, he's probably going to call you to the mission field, and you're going to be out there.
Yeah, that's what we thought. That's what I thought.
But now we think, if I'm going to really walk with God, I'm going to be like Johnny, or I'm going to fall down the stairs like Judy, or something. I'm like, I'll just stay in here in the pew and just check off my list. I did my devotions. I gave.
He doesn't choose for everybody to go through mess like that. People that have never been through mess like that can get just as close to him. I got a hard head. I'm
okay.
Stubborn.
Well, I'm hard-headed too, so that's scary. So you're making it worse. No, but the point is that we don't have to worry about how we could go through it, because when something does happen, the grace is there. But I know people experiencing excruciating pain right now that aren't necessarily experiencing that grace, but they haven't abandoned faith. And I'm just going to say that the journey of getting to that experience is very messy.
Absolutely. It doesn't come like that. It does not come like that.
It's a battle. It's a battle of the mind, of the everything.
I think for a follower of Jesus, you do have to get to a place of surrender in whatever it is. You have to get to a place of surrender. Not easy.
Oh, not for the hard-headed, stubborn people. Like, I wrestle God on everything.
Right.
Yeah, I do. It's like I'm a big brat. I don't go down easy.
Now that I'm a little older, I'm a little farther down the road. So
yeah, right.
I can cry uncle a little quicker now than I used to, if you understand what that means.
I do.
That means I surrender.
Yes, I do know. All right. Well done. Hope everybody benefits from this, and thank you for watching, and we'll be back. All right, I'm going to stop this.
Yes.